Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out another Eldrazi ramp deck. This one's got a bit of a twist as we're playing red for our commander, Herigast, Erupting Nullkite, a 9-mana 6/6 Eldrazi dragon, but it also has Emerge, which will cost us 6 and double red. Emerge meaning we can sacrifice a creature when we cast Herigast, and it'll get a discount equal to the sacrificed creature's mana value. So if we sacrifice a 3-drop, it only costs us 5 mana to cast our commander, and when we cast it, whether or not it gets countered, we'll get to exile our hand if we'd like to draw 3 cards. If we have cards in hand we like, we can just ignore that ability. And then from now on, every creature we cast has Emerge with its Emerge cost equal to its mana cost. So if we get our 9-mana Herigast in play, maybe on turn 4 already, we can now immediately use it to emerge another colorless Eldrazi that costs 9 or less mana, and that's how we can potentially chain together a whole bunch of spells, getting to our expensive Eldrazi Titans, which can then help take over the game. So that's kind of the idea with Herigast, a more explosive version of the Eldrazi ramp deck, which goes through some of our creatures to get our more expensive cards in play. So then if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories, starting with our kind of traditional ramp cards, some mana artifacts and other cards that can produce additional mana for us. And then the other big category here are the creatures we're planning to sacrifice to emerge Herigast in the first place. And these will often be creatures that have an ability when they enter, maybe making a treasure token or finding a land, which also contributes towards ramping out our more expensive spells. And then we don't mind sacrificing a random 3-drop or 4-drop that already did its thing. And then if we go up the curve, we even have some of the warp creatures from Edge of Eternities, such as the Bygone Colossus, can get it in play for 3 mana, and then it counts as a 9-drop, which is also perfect for Emerge purposes. And then next up we've got our finishers, and these are mostly the Eldrazi Titans, which we're hoping to emerge into play using Herigast or maybe sacrificing some other creature that's in play. And then our miscellaneous section has a bit more interaction, a bit of card draw, and even some other ways to cheat our creatures into play, making use of the red mana in our mana base. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our classic ramp cards, I am running a Mox Opal since we've got plenty of artifacts, at which point we can enable Metalcraft to make an extra mana for free. And then at 2 mana we can now play Arcane Signet, which is not a card you can play in a colorless deck since it won't make mana there, but here it can tap for a red. Then there's Coldsteel Heart, Guardian Idol, Mindstone, Solar Transformer, and the Ironcrag, as well as It That Heralds the End, aka Herald, which will discount our expensive colorless spells, also applies to Emerge, and giving our colorless creatures +1/+1. Then at 3 mana there's Dragon's Horde, which will pick up a counter when we cast our commander, so we can draw an extra card. The Fleshraker doesn't want to be sacrificed to Emerge ideally, instead we want to keep it in play to make lots of spawn tokens, pinging the opponent in the meantime. Skyclave Relic fine to cast for 3 or to kick for 6 total. The Celestus can also maybe improve our hand. Unstable Obelisk can also double up as removal. Then there's the Urza's Incubator, discounting our Eldrazi by 2. Just be careful in the mirror match, since it is symmetrical. Then there's the Worn Power Stone, tapping for double colorless. At 4 mana we have a few more of those, with Hedron Archive and the Ring. And then at 5 mana, Forsaken Monument, despite now having a bunch of mountains in the mana base, still very strong as it doubles the mana from our various colorless lands and some of our ramp artifacts that produce colorless mana. Then Gilded Lotus can immediately tap for 3 mana. There's the Eternity Elevator, making 3 colorless, can also maybe station it, at which point it can make even more mana. And finally Ultima, similar to Forsaken Monument, also lets our colorless lands produce additional mana for us. Then we move on to our sacrifice fodder for Emerge, starting with Ornithopter of Paradise. Of course, ideally we keep it in play, but it's still a mana creature that can make a mana when we tap it, and contributes 2 mana for Emerge, so that's 3 total to maybe help discount Herigast. Then a few creatures that are maybe better to sacrifice. Plundering Pirate makes a treasure when it enters, so that contributes 4 mana total, so this can curve into Herigast on the following turn, similar to the Redcap Thief. The Precursor will make a spawn token whenever we sacrifice a non-token permanent, so if we sack this to Emerge, we will get a spawn token in return at least. Then there's the Circuit Mender and Filigree Familiar, gaining life and then drawing cards when we sacrifice them. Matter Reshaper can also maybe help us ramp once we sacrifice it. There's the Mirror, can make 2 colorless mana, so if we sacrifice this to Emerge, it essentially contributes 5 mana total. Then there's the Blazing Sky, which is 4 mana and then leaves behind 3 untapped treasure tokens, so that's also quite good. Got the Enduring Courage, which even when it dies turns into an enchantment, which will still give our creatures haste and 2 additional power when they enter. It's also perfect for setting up some hasty Eldrazi, especially nice with Annihilator, and then also good for setting up Herigast. Rekindling Phoenix, as you may remember, will keep coming back from the graveyard, so also perfect to keep sacrificing to our various Emerge abilities. Then there's the Surveyor and Solemn, which will find a land when they enter. Solemn also draws a card when it dies, so particularly synergistic here. Then we've got the Spawn Gang Commander, making 3 Eldrazi spawn tokens when we cast it, and then it's a 5-drop we don't mind sacrificing. We've got the Combustible Gearhulk, which has a nice ETB effect on a 6/6 first strike, so totally fine to keep in play, but we also usually don't mind sacrificing it afterwards, and this will often draw us 3 cards, since the opponent's going to be scared to take the damage in a deck that's full of expensive Eldrazi. Then there's the Vestige, which is also great to warp for 4 mana, still counts as a 6-drop for Emerge purposes, and then when it leaves the battlefield it will draw us a card and maybe put another permanent into play from our hand. We've got Wormcoil Engine, which will leave some worm tokens behind even when it dies. It's also good to potentially sacrifice. We've got Frogmere Enforcer, which makes use of the affinity mechanic to get a discount, and then ideally if we get the 7-mana version into play, it can discount our Emerge costs by 7, so then we can pretty much Emerge Herigast for double red. Then there's a Skitterbeam Battalion. This is fine to both cast for 5 mana, maybe sacrifice. All the extra tokens also count as 5-drops for Emerge, but we can also maybe Emerge it right after we cast Herigast, and then essentially get to cast it for free, making 12 power worth of haste and trample. And then we mentioned the Bygone Colossus, which we can also warp for 3 mana, and discounting by 9 for Emerge. And then moving on to our finishers, we've got the Devourer of Destiny, very nice to have in your opening hand to smooth out your draw, also fine to cast and exile something. We've got the Sire of 7 Deaths with 7 various keywords, and they're all quite good, especially against aggro. We've got the Breaker of Creation with Annihilator 2, so definitely benefits from haste, can also gain us a bunch of life when we cast it. There's Kozilek, the Broken Reality, alongside Kozilek, the Great Distortion, which can refill our hand. We've got 3 different Ulamogs, the Ceaseless Hunger exiling 2 things when we cast it, the Defiler getting to hopefully pick up a lot of counters to set up a powerful Annihilator, and then the Infinite Gyre can also maybe destroy 1 thing when we cast it, and then also has Annihilator 4 when it gets to attack. And then we've got all 3 Emrakuls, the World Anew stealing all of the opponent's creatures, the Promised End stealing the opponent's next turn, and the Aeon's Torn stealing the show and likely ending the game on the spot. And then we've got our miscellaneous section with Moonsilver Key, often going for some of our bigger ramp artifacts such as the Forsaken Monument. We've got Kozilek's Return as a powerful sweeper, dealing 2 on the front and then 5 on the back once we cast it for free out of the graveyard when we cast an expensive Eldrazi. We've got Sneak Attack, which can maybe sneak our Eldrazi into play for a single red, and then we can still maybe sacrifice them to Emerge after they've dealt damage, so that's also quite synergistic. We've got the One Ring to protect us and draw us extra cards. Mystic Fort can also cast our colorless spells off the top, and then the 2 Ugin Planeswalkers that are legal in Brawl, the Ineffable discounting our colorless spells, can also remove stuff, and Ugin Eye of the Storms doesn't need an introduction, also incredibly powerful once it gets going, exiling multiple things when we cast more colorless spells. And then our mana base, the most important lands on the right here include Arena of Glory to give our creatures haste. We can also maybe split up that 2 red mana to give 2 different creatures haste in the same turn when we're emerging stuff. And then we've got a few lands that make 2 mana, Ancient Tomb being the most useful one probably, since it can also ramp out our initial ramp artifacts. Then there's the Eldrazi Temple, which can make 2 mana for Eldrazi spells, and Ugin's Labyrinth requires us to imprint something, but can then also make 2 colorless mana for us. Then a couple mountains, and I also want a few wastes at least in case we want to search up additional colorless mana to synergize with a monument or Ultima. And then our remaining lands include some artifact lands to contribute towards Metalcraft, have some lands that gain life or maybe scry when they enter the battlefield to help improve our draw steps. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Kefka. Grixis mid-range, maybe has some discard synergies as well. So creatures are unlikely to survive, so I'm tempted to keep this one, even though we're missing something to emerge. Can pick up our Adventures in at some point, gain some more life. For now, play Cold Steel. Signet we can tap the turn we play it, so it's a bit more valuable later. So maybe next turn we can double spell already. Possible they've got a counterspell up here with the way they sequenced. So maybe start with Signet and then play Relic afterwards. Seems fine. So they're not fighting over my ramp cards. Possible they keep the counterspell for Ugin. But there's Kefka. Discard a land for now. And then Ugin at least a clean solution to Kefka. Archway pick up Adventures in. And then next turn we can maybe cast Herigast. Cruel Claws Heist draws into another land, so they can't take anything away. But they do have a Dreadbore. Used to be a rare, now a common. So we lost a discount for Herigast. I still have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So yeah, with Elevator we can get there next turn. And then I'm probably exiling my hand. They can replay Kefka. They know we'll be discarding a land. And now they're close to transforming it as well next turn, so that could be an issue. Skitterbeam Battalion. That one's pretty fun. I can cast it for 9 mana, and then still emerge. Sacking either one of these. Exile my hand. And then don't have the double red to emerge the Gearhulk. Also should have stationed before sacrificing the 4/4 with Elevator here. But yeah, we get to, I guess, not quite attack. So then I'm probably staying put. So this turns into a 5/7 when my opponent loses life, draw that many. So then I should probably keep Herigast on defense. So still needs a little bit of extra power before this generates extra mana. Arena to give haste could also come in handy. Alright, Thoughtseize can take the Gearhulk. Problem with discarding Circuit Mender to Kefka is that they get multiple types. Opponent now reanimating Grenzo with Rakdos joins up. Perhaps the reason they discarded it earlier. So yeah, that's a problem. Although at least I can cast my Eldrazi for free, since the nerf. So we are holding Kefka back. Opponent found a precursor that they got to cast for free. Anything else? Get to untap. Okay, so not the most exciting turn here. Can play a Lotus. And a Circuit Mender. At least we're empty-handed. So they can't leverage Kefka as much. And then we can still Fountain Port. Could also consider stationing. Not that I need the extra mana, but could make it easier to cast Herigast. And then potentially go off. So I'll still go for it. And then Circuit Mender happy to chump. So had I stationed with the initial 4/4, this would have been at 20 counters. 3 cards in hand. One of those is Jingataxius. Will mostly be casting creature spells, so still beatable. Mind Stone gets copied now. That's the one from our deck. So, still not in terrible shape. I'll make a treasure here. And get to untap. Ironcrag is going to get countered by Jingataxius. And a Planar Incision flickered is going to make me discard the Ironcrag anyway. I guess I can also reset my elevator. They're just targeting Grenzo and Kefka. Alright, no response. So we can fully station the elevator. Maybe go digging with Fountain Port. So this now makes 20 mana. And draw, sacking the treasure. Sadly cannot sacrifice Herigast to recast it. And how about an Emrakul with haste? And I guess I'll even emerge it. So, yeah, let's be careful, go full control. Cast it, sacking Herigast. And using the haste mana from Arena, but only 1. So I can still give another creature haste. Target my opponent. Steal your stuff. Opponent has a response. Gets a token from the fetch land, that's neat. But they'll only have 1 blue mana to interfere. That works. And then now I can still cast Herigast with haste. Could emerge if we want to get rid of one of their creatures. Could be safer if they have a way to maybe steal it back. But honestly, let's just cast it. Normally, got plenty of mana to work with. And give Herigast haste in the process. Draw 3. Possible they have a wash away to counter my commander. Found a Mystic Forge. So we're not done yet. Play some more things off the top. Although maybe I should go to attackers first here. See what happens. Alright, that worked. Otherwise I would maybe sack the Mender after attacking with it to keep going. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the Fate Thief. Gonna try and steal our stuff. This hand doesn't have any ramp, so gonna mulligan. This is better. Turn to Cold Steel Hearts. A Redcap Thief, we also don't mind sacrificing. Can maybe ramp out a Wormcoil Engine. Still going for Cold Steel first. Next turn could play Redcap Thief plus Archway. Pick up Radiant Fountain again. as our opponent's going to surveil. Says no to a lightning bolt. Still need to draw into a powerful Curve Topper, but that's where we can maybe draw 3 with Herigast. Now Chromox will give them an extra mana. For Laughing Jasper, yeah, that's pretty good too. Can also steal our stuff. Could now play the Blazing Sky. But then next turn my land likely enters tapped. So I think I'm fine going Redcap Thief Archway. Upside here is that we can hold off Jasper. Just exile the lands, which they cannot play. And then maybe we start with Wormcoil Engine. And this is a pirate, so also counts towards their Jasper trigger. At least Wormcoil's going to be an annoying card for them to get rid of. Ooh, they did find Emrakul and the Eternity Elevator, which they can maybe cast. Also means no Emrakul left in the deck. And next turn we can mostly empty our hand. Bitter Triumph takes care of Wormcoil, still leaves behind the tokens. Does make it weaker when it comes to emerging stuff, as we no longer have a 6-drop to sacrifice. But I think we'll be okay. As long as we can hold off an attack here. We're not going to be under too much pressure, and then hopefully we can go over the top with our commander. They did get to enable the Fate Thief. So they get to heist our library to steal more cards. A Lotus was a good draw. Can play it. Still play the Blazing Sky after. And then I'm fine to stay put. Could also get in with a Lifelinker, I suppose. Steals 2 cards, including a Flesh Raker. And they can fix their colors, so despite not having colorless mana, they can still cast it. Also now a Mercenary, so that also contributes. And our opponent keeps up 2 mana, so very much possible that they have removal for Herigast in hand. I think we start by attacking. Lifelinker and Blazing Sky. Then we can make use of Eldrazi Temple for the emerge. Still gonna mostly empty my hand, play Ornithopter. May not be worth it to play the Transformer, in case I draw into something I want to cast. Sack the Redcap over our Flyer. And draw 3. Okay, so we could still emerge a Gearhulk if we wanted to. Sacking Ornithopter. So then it costs 4 mana, so I cannot play the Horde first. Still seems worth it to me. Opponent's at 11, so if they don't let us draw, we could mill an Eldrazi to just win the game. Opponent did indeed have removal for Herigast. Back to the command zone. And they let us draw 3. So now with Sanctum of Ugin, we can search up whatever big Eldrazi is left in the deck, as our opponent got rid of a few of them. And then try to emerge Herigast, and I can immediately emerge something else. Ideally, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn would be fun to see, although Fury is gonna have a word here. Still fine to sack the Gearhulk. Make some treasure. So I might have to do some math in a second. So if I merge this, it now costs 4 mana, assuming I sack the Gearhulk. Can sack the Sanctum, get Emrakul, which cost me 6 mana if I emerge with Herigast. I think we can pull that off. Do I want to attack first? This has double strike, so they could trade. Doesn't seem worth it. So let's emerge. Trigger Sanctum. Yes, please. Get the biggest Emrakul. I will not exile my hand, but I will emerge for 6 mana. Back to the command zone. This is cast, so I get an extra turn. Don't need to do anything else. And then Emrakul can cross the finish line, triggering Annihilator. And that's how you do it. Sweet. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Aragorn, 4-color creatures. This hand's a little too slow, Mox Opal's not online right away. This one isn't perfect. Do have Incubator into Ring, but no 2-mana play. Still need a 4th land. So then we're looking at a 7-mana Herigast, which I may be able to cast if I draw 2 lands in the next 3 or 4 draw steps. I'll try it. At least we're gaining some life, so maybe we don't die. Alright, Temur's a reasonable draw. So can play that before we play the Incubator, perhaps. Opponent could, of course, have some efficient removal. Having access to 4 colors does give you access to some of the best cards in the game. Kellen joins up, alright. So they get to plot a card that they can cast for free next turn. And they chose Cabaretti Revels, another pretty busted alchemy card. Okay, so for now, play the Mirror. Which next turn, 4, 5, 6, could let us emerge Herigast if we really wanted to. Which would then set up our other Eldrazi, but opponent had a Rip Apart, so that's gone. Birds triggers Revels, but no 0-mana creatures in the deck. Alright, next up, Rekindling Phoenix is reasonable. Can sack it to Herigast next turn, and then keep sacking it for Emerge. If this gets exiled next turn, at least I can play Ring plus Incubator. I tend to be careful with running out to Great Furnace, because it is an artifact that's not indestructible, so they can destroy our lands more easily here, but also didn't want to take a damage to cast a Phoenix. Ramana Pruin's still useful, as it's a land that can produce colorless, which is synergistic with Forsaken Monument. Opponent found the Slick Shots with Revels. Alright, so let's make it count, get in for 4. And then Herigast would cost 4 mana to emerge. So I can play Incubator first. And then let's tap like a sane person. Name Eldrazi. Emerge for just double red. And then I'm gonna have to keep my hand here. Can still cast another Eldrazi afterwards. Does mean not being able to emerge as easily next turn, But putting an Emrakul into play here is probably worth it. Back to the command zone. Take the opponent's next turn. And what are we working with? Guard Approach we can waste. Gaia's Gift we can waste. And Royal Treatment, so it's a bunch of protection spells. So we can fire those all off. We can send Aragorn to an early demise. And that's about it. Let's see, Gaia's Gift. I could also cast on... I guess it's only creature you control. I guess the birds is probably the best recipient for it. Unless we want the birds to die. But I think Aragorn's scarier. So actually I should attack first with Aragorn so they don't get any abilities. Aragorn, what are you doing? And then I don't have to send it back to the command zone either. So it's stuck in the graveyard, where they wouldn't be able to cast it. And then Royal Treatment, also targeting the birds. Gaia's Gift on the birds. And you see a Guard Approach. Okay, that's good enough. So they're left with a Scrap Gorger, which can trigger the Revels. But that's not optional, so had we cast it, it's not like I could have declined. No more access to Aragorn unless they can exile their graveyard, which I guess they can with a Scrap Gorger, so that's how they can eventually gain access to Aragorn again. The birds is getting pretty swole. But now Phoenix is back. Ring could tap down the birds, does have a ward. But then we're still only attacking for 17. I guess I do have a Ramana Runes I can't forget about. Can I do anything with the arena? I guess I can play Hasty Herigast. That would now cost me, let's see, with a discount. I guess that kind of equals out with a commander attack, so 4 mana. So then I can still play a Ring, or I can go Herigast into something else. I guess I could do that regardless. Although maybe I can set up a hasty Ulamog the Defiler, which would be preferable. Let's see. I can Arena, make double red. Then we only want to use one of that red mana on Herigast. Sacking Phoenix. Nope. Yeah, let's float some other red mana. Okay, that worked. Do not exile my hand. And then now the Defiler cast for 0 mana, sacking Herigast. Although I guess it means I can't give it haste because I didn't spend mana on it. So that's a shame, but I guess that's still the play here. Otherwise I could have attacked with Hasty Herigast. But yeah, since it's 0 mana, that didn't quite work. Now I can attack. So I guess in hindsight, just playing Ring would have made more sense. Because I forget we could cast Ulamog for free, so then it didn't really gain the benefit from an Arena of Glory. Had I gone for Hasty Herigast, I would have forced him to at least jump with the birds. So yeah, I guess the ideal sequencing would have been to just attack with Hasty Herigast, and then second main, emerge Ulamog. And then our opponent's basically losing the birds in the process. Should still be alright. Opponent did not use Scrap Gorger on Aragorn yet. They did find an Uro. And now a bodyguard can make their legends indestructible. But they're still probably going to die to this trampling Emrakul. Although I guess the birds picked up even more counters in the meantime, so they could soak up an attack. Scrapgorger can also exile Rekindling Phoenix before it comes back. So then I don't have lethal in the air anymore. But then it's probably just time to use Ring to tap down birds. So we should be alright. And this does have Annihilator 6. So that's also no joke. Opponent's going for a Hail Mary. Scrapgorger exiles Phoenix. So can just take the hits. Although maybe Tramping Ragavan was safer, but it's not like my deck has any Swords to Plowshares they can hit. Halfling on defense, and our opponent scoops it up, so we got there in the end. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Grist, the Hunger Tide, black-green insect. So Coast LLC return should be effective. Devour can maybe look for some early ramp. So I don't hate it. Can look for either some artifact ramp or a creature we can sack to emerge. A couple options here. Probably go for Arcane Signets. Scry. Ugin the Ineffable. Not a bad draw. Can also destroy their Planeswalker. So I'll keep it. It's going to be CDC. And there's Grist. Grist will make it a little harder to emerge using my creatures, since they can maybe destroy it first. Start with a Mystic Forge, see what's on top. Precursor would be a reasonable draw, so don't need to get rid of it just yet. Survives a 2 damage from Coast LLC return. Although I could be more aggressive in looking for more ramp cards. Yeah, I think I actually go digging, put an upkeep stop as well. Gearhulk, another expensive card I probably don't need. Alright, Spawn Gang's actually pretty good here. Bit of a number with my Coast LLC return potentially, but we'll set up Herigast and my other spells nicely. Opponent will take out Spawn Gang, it seems. If I really wanted to, I could use its ability, sacrifice itself to deal 2, but then I have to give up on 2 spawn tokens, so that's probably not worth it. Now Liliana can also fill the graveyards, make some zombies.
The living are just so needy. Death is ever present.
Alright. Take 2. And then we've got options. Can maybe start with activating Mystic Forge. Another land on top. Can maybe bottom with a grotto. And Eldrazi Temple, that one's more exciting. Could cast a Devourer. Could also go for Ugin, destroy Liliana. I think Devourer to help stabilize the ground is maybe better. Get rid of your Planeswalker.
Waste of my time.
And this is also a good one to maybe emerge Herigast onto, which would then set up Ulamog on the cheap. So they may destroy the Devourer here. And that's alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can still cast Ulamog the normal way. 4/3 Death Touch. Their Woodland's also active, so I have to watch out for anything that ends up in the graveyard. Take 3. And Emrakul on top as well. So definitely have options. Just casting Ulamog seems reasonable. Could be weak to an Edict effect, making us sacrifice 1 creature. What would be the alternative? Cast Ugin. Have Coast extra turn available. Doesn't seem as exciting. And I don't think I need to emerge Herigast since my hand is good. So yeah, let's just go for it. These cards are exiled, so they don't contribute towards the graveyard for Grist. And 13 counters, so we must have exiled something expensive here. The room cards have a pretty high combined mana value. And yeah, we see the opponent with a promised end as well. So if they can destroy Ulamog, this is gonna destroy them. Can block the zombie or maybe CDC. And Edict, so they had a board wipe all along. Fair enough. Do I still want to draw Emrakul? At this point I might want to go elsewhere. Persist back the Terror. Can just blow it up with Ugin. Yeah, Emrakul's not looking too great anymore. And draw Incubator, which I can cast for 1 mana. So that's decent. So if this attacks, they can pay 4, return a creature to the battlefield. Anything scary, of course, they could mill more stuff with Grist. So the safest play is probably just to -3. Or I can plus... Yeah, you know what, let's just plus. Phoenix on top, could be a reasonable draw. Still gonna name Eldrazi. So hoping they don't mill anything too scary. Alright, they are taking out my 2/2. I guess I can also destroy Planeswalkers with it, so maybe that's their plan. Okay, fair enough. So Ugin still dealt with both of their threats. Grist is back. Now we do have to watch out for the -5 since we're at 7. We'll just take our draw. Wormcoil Engine, now that's a good one to cast when you're needing some life gain. Attack Grist. Opponent jumps. There is a Kogla, which can be copied by the Shifting Woodlands. So that's kind of scary. But the Wormcoil should leave blockers behind. Grist pluses. Milling an Archpriest. Also good to reanimate stuff. And a Squirming Emergence, getting back the Eldest Reborn. Okay. Get rid of my token, I think. Anything else? Shifting Woodland Kogla, as we suspected. So that can attack and blow up an artifact. Goes for the Incubator. Can still trade, have to trade. And now the Shifting Woodland's gone at least. Emrakul on top, that would be lovely to cast. Not going to be able to right now, I don't think, unless Emerging sets it up. But I can Coast LLC return, get rid of the token, finish off Grist. And then next turn we have to discard a card, that's fine. Could leave myself empty-handed. I guess I'm still in favor of just playing the Phoenix and then discarding the Dragon's Horde. And then next turn I should be able to both emerge Herigast as well as cast Emrakul. Which means I control the opponent during Chapter 3. Opponent's going through the graveyard for Zombify to bring back Sidisi. That's interesting. And they just wanted to set up Victimize to bring back 2 creatures at once. Alright, that makes more sense. So Archpriest and Kogla, they are tapped. Kogla does get to fight. Probably the lifelinker. Okay, that happens. Take my draw, step 1, attack for 7. Could also leave the Death Toucher back to set up a trade. Reasonable. Could just cast Emrakul to be fair. Because the problem with emerging is that I don't want to draw 3 at this stage, because we need Emrakul in hand. So I guess that makes more sense. And then I don't need to Coast LLC return if I don't want to. I guess I would deal with Archpriest, but I can just trade for the Worm. So then, yeah, I guess we're fine. Either way. Is this optional? Destroy target artifact. So, yeah, I guess I would have to blow up my Signet or something. That's okay. So I control my opponents. Get something back. This is a must get something back situation. Let's see, could also get back Ugin, destroy their stuff with a -3. Or get back Spawn Gang. And can just sack a bunch of stuff for fun. Maybe the best use. Oh, never mind, I guess it doesn't even trigger and make the tokens. But yeah, it's just a useless 2/2. Opponent drew a Swamp, don't need to play it. Grist. Sacrifice a creature, destroy target creature or planeswalker, so we can also just set that up. Sacrifice Kogla, destroy Archpriest. Or could have destroyed Grist itself, but yeah, this seems okay. Now it's the opponent's turn. They're on empty, one unknown in hand. And Overlord's not actually all that bad here. Are we getting Kogla back once again? We are. Grist makes an insect. And Kogla can not really do much. Phoenix is just gonna come back. So then it might be finally time to emerge Herigast and draw 3. Can play a mirror off the top. Sure. If I play the Pirates, do I have enough mana to emerge Herigast afterwards, or do I just get rid of the Pirate at this point? Yeah, I might just want to attack. Finish off Grist. The token might get blown up by Kogla, so it could attack with it as well. But we've got other valuable artifacts. Emerge Herigast. Sacking the Phoenix. And then no real need to Coast LLC return. We'll exile my hands. Can play land for turn, and we've got a few of those. Yeah, I'll just gain 2 to be safe. If they do target my worm with Kogla, I can always sack it to Fountain Port to draw. And Grist wants to probably get rid of Emrakul at long last. And we'll draw. So our opponent seems dead on board now to Herigast and the Phoenix. Can just take it. Although it would be fun to keep playing with Herigast some more. Can play an Iron Crag, but yeah, let's just put our opponents out of their misery, attack for 10, and that's it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, so kind of a red aggro tokens deck perhaps. Our hand is not amazing, Ornithopter likely to get burnt out. This seems better, relying more on non-creature artifacts. And then Sneak Attack also maybe allows us to sneak some expensive Eldrazi into play for 1 red mana. For now, play Guardian Idol. Next turn we can double spell Horde plus Signet. Pretty slow start for a red deck. So possible they're holding some removal spells. And yep, that's gonna take care of my idol. Next up, still probably play the Horde, or I can double spell Signet with It That Heralds. Would also discount the Emerge on Herigast. Opponent's gonna melt through. So now perpetually defaced, and our opponent, speaking of defacing, actually has defaced, destroying my artifact. Alright, so lots of removal as we suspected. Can go for Forge. which then also helps me hit my land drops to play Lotus, or I can just play the Horde, and then next turn I'm guaranteed to play the Lotus. Now Koth, also a good one. Can get more mountains. Chandra can also get those removal spells back out of the graveyard. So our artifacts are not safe. This turn, probably still go for Lotus into Ornithopter. I'll get another Wastes in case we draw our cards that care about colorless lanes. There's Ultima and Forsaken Monument. Somewhat likely to lose both Lotus and Ornithopter next turn between Koth and Chandra. Still have Mystic Forge for card advantage. Alright, Brotherhood's End, destroying all artifacts with mana value 3 or less. So, we definitely picked the wrong matchup to show up with our artifacts.
I'm a pretty great pyromancer.
This also avoided damaging their own planeswalkers. And Koth could ultimate next turn. Play Mystic Forge. And then can still play a Sneak Attack, but maybe there's something on top. And Emrakul. Well, we can sneak Emrakul into play. And they won't really be able to stop that. Chandra also helps with adding loyalty to your red planeswalkers.
Study? Focus? I just want to burn stuff already.
So there's a Koth emblem, so they can now deal 4 when they play Mountain.
Never surrender to their invaders.
And our opponent's gonna proliferate some more with the Bastion. Alright. So now there's Kozilek on top, more creatures we can sneak in. Of course we don't get the cast trigger if we use Sneak Attack, but getting rid of a Planeswalker or just dealing 13 to our opponent is worth it. Because yeah, 13 and then next turn 12 with Kozilek would be game over. So let's go for it. Now I can also actually merge Herigast's second main, so we get to keep that in play, so that's great. And with protection from instants, opponent's just gonna Galvanic Blast our face. And face is the place here. Can emerge, or empty-handed, so we just get to draw 3. Play Ring, and then could emerge Kozilek, but honestly just casting it could be better. And keep Herigast around, make them answer it with Koth. I guess they're kind of guaranteed to just use a -3 next turn. So maybe just casting Kozilek here is better. Back to the command zone, I get to draw 7. So this was a pretty awesome turn. I think we're done here. Can also use Mystic Forge to get rid of my top card, but the 1 life could end up mattering, so I'm just being extra cautious against the red deck. And we did find Forsaken Monument, so that's one of the payoffs for controlling lots of colorless lanes. Can also gain us some life back. So our opponent is gonna try and deal with Kozilek. We can maybe counter some spells with Kozilek's ability. So they need 1 more damage. Plasma Bolts, I do not have any 1-drops in hand, so yeah. They successfully dealt with a Kozilek. But they are down to 1 card in hand, so now I feel okay getting rid of the Grotto. And I could just sneak a whole bunch of creatures into play here. Let's say I play the Monuments. Now these all tap for extra mana. I can play an Elevator. Gain some life. Cast the Devourer. Could also sneak it with haste, but then we don't get the cast trigger. So get rid of your Chandra, maybe.
Consider this bridge burned.
And then we should be able to emerge, but not before we station for 8. And then do I exile my hands? My hand's still decent, although could find something even more exciting, I guess. And our opponent has seen enough. Alright, I'll take it. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, and we're getting lucky here with the Gemstone Caverns, which we can put in play right away. And then lots of colorless lands for Ultima. Probably have to pitch the big Emrakul. Although I could maybe emerge it off Herigast and then get rid of the Sire instead. But I feel like the Lifelink's going to be useful against our opponent's commander dealing damage with landfall. Turn 1 exploration into a fetch land, so that's a nice start as well. Alright, I'll surveil. Mountain I should probably keep. And then turn 2 Power Stone. Turn 3. And we have a few options. They get to play Tammuk, play an extra land, draw cards. Alright, we're going for a different approach. A Myco Spawn to ramp. Are we getting Strip Mine already? Nope, Ancient Tomb. So opponent's off to a beautiful start. I'm just gonna play the Power Stone. So yeah, despite the Cavern, we're still super far behind. Now Analyst. Can eventually get those lands back. Coastal Extra Turn would be a nice way to clean up. But need to get it in the graveyard first. So this turn with a Blazing Sky, I set up the Emerge a little bit better. Ultima just adds a little bit more mana, but maybe the plan is to wipe the board first. And then just get the Blazing Sky down. And then next turn, I might need more red mana to both Coastal Extra Turn and Emerge. Although the treasures can fix. I just feel like if they have removal, I would rather get the treasures than just lose Ultima. But it's gonna Field of Ruin Fountain Port, that's acceptable. In fact, that lets me cast Coastal Extra Turn right now. Does require getting a mountain. So before the floating mana goes away, we can return and even take care of this Lotus Cobra. So that Field of Ruin play kind of backfired here. But I guess our opponent just wanted to enable landfall. So now I can attack for 4. And emerge. I could even play, let's see, this is 4 mana to emerge it basically. If I play Ultima... Yeah, I'm not gonna have the right colors to emerge. I mean, I could just cast the Sire, I suppose, and then wait to set up that play next turn, and for now wipe the board. Make treasure. Not gonna emerge onto the Sire. Tammuk is back. With a vengeance. No additional lane drop. So get you for 7. And then we can play Ultima. Could emerge off of Ultima as well. Kinda happy to just chill for a turn. And maybe next turn hardcast Herigast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See, I'm a little bit short of casting it right now. They did have a Rage for 4. Get all those lands back. Draw with Tammuk. But they need to block the Sire. And they cannot, and our opponent scoops it up. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand seems a little too slow. Facing Gloria, so it's going to be a pretty aggressive deck. This I can get behind. We even have an artifact land to help enable Metalcraft. So, for now I guess I'll Surveil. Although maybe if I draw another artifact land, it's going to benefit me to have the Furnace in play already. Can also be destroyed by the opponent, so we do have to be careful. For now, a role model. Also good at modifying their creatures. So we can Surveil. Power Stone is usually a good one. Yeah, I guess I'll keep it. Can play Mind Stone. Mox Opal is active, and then I could play a 1-mana Enforcer. Or, let's see, next turn, play Power Stone. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 artifacts. Can cast this for 3 mana. But I guess this enters tapped, so it wouldn't quite work out. Alright, in that case I'll play this now. So this counts as a 4-drop for emerge purposes. Opponent has a bolt, sadly. Alright, so we'll have to go a different approach. Can still just cast a Spawn Gang. Or maybe Pirate plus Power Stone to double spell. That's also pretty good. And then if the pirate dies, it's not a disaster, otherwise I can sack it to emerge. Sure. So likely gonna see their commander this turn, maybe suited up with the boots. Yep, and there's Gloria. Opponent's gonna fetch. So if I sack the pirates, I can essentially emerge this for 5 mana. Can I first play Ugin? I doubt it. And drew the land. So Ugin would be 6 mana, leaving 2. Gives Herigast a 2 mana discount. So then 5, 6, 7. One short of going Ugin into Herigast. Could just play Ugin, destroy Gloria, paying the ward. Then we lose Ugin to the flyer. Or I can attack, emerge Herigast. Although, let's see, can I Spawn Gang? I should be able to Spawn Gang and then Herigast, maybe exiling my hand to look for more exciting cards. And then have to probably sack the Spawn Gang itself. 5 mana. 3, I've got 3 spawn. Yeah, we can certainly do some damage that way. So let me start here. Making sure to leave a red mana available. So I could cast Ugin now, but I don't think it's as good as getting Herigast down. Exile my hand. And found Kozilek, which I could still emerge here. That's probably worth it. Bump up all my tokens as well. Target myself, and yeah, I'll target my opponent as well if they want to put some 2/2s into play. Lets me draw more cards. And then we've got Ulamog at the ready. Not going to play Key, would rather keep my creatures. And this should be able to attack. Fine if it trades, even though it's not bad to set up another emerge. Alright, pass it back. It was a Dromoka warrior face down. Can always turn this face up if we pay 4 mana if we need a flyer. And they can get flying with a Guide of Souls as well. So we are taking quite a beating. But I should be able to cast an Ulamog next turn as well to try and stabilize. Although that still leaves the problem of the flying creatures. Well, that could be a solution. And I can just about cast it. So, yeah, let's go for it. Alternatively, can emerge Herigast, sacking Kozilek, which would then maybe set up my other Eldrazi, but it feels like a cleaner solution to just cast Emrakul. Any point in attacking first. I think we're better off clearing a path. And I wouldn't want to lose any 3/3s. Still have to watch out for Arena of Glory giving a flying creature haste. But now we also have Emrakul. Ooh, Boromir out of nowhere. Giving their creatures indestructible, but that doesn't stop Emrakul. I can sack Sanctum of Ugin, although I think I would rather keep the lands. And then we should be fine to attack. Alright, Emrakul for the win. What can our opponent come up with? We are at 4, so I guess a Boros Charm would be game over. But they don't have it, and there we go. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Rodolf Duskbringer. 6 mana, 4/4, Flying Death Touch lifelink. Gains indestructible when they gain life. And they can pay a bunch of mana to return creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, our hand seems fine. And we've got Ornithopter into more goodies, which are all excellent to sack to emerge. And then maybe I'll exile my hand to look for some expensive Eldrazi to emerge. Now, of course, Black-White might have some ways to exile the Enduring Courage. And next turn I'm leaning, maybe play Scampering Surveyor, and then I can go Archive plus Courage in the same turn. Angel Vitality, pretty good in Brawl. Starting at 25 life means it's immediately a 4/4. Alright, there's Emrakul. That's a finisher we want to work towards. So this turn, can play Surveyor. Can get basic wastes for what it's worth. In case we draw Forsaken Monument, it's better to have more colorless lands in play. So next turn I could already emerge Herigast onto the Surveyor. Hallowed Priest is going to pick up some counters. And take 4. So, yeah, we certainly have options. I kind of like the idea of setting up a hasty Herigast and Emrakul. So going for the Enduring Courage first. Can Surveil with a Grotto. Sanctum of Ugin seems like a fine draw. So make sure to leave up double red. Play the Courage. And then next turn, and we can hopefully have some fun. Can sack the Courage itself, turn it into an enchantment. Next turn they can cast their commander. For now we're gonna take a bit of a beating. Alright, so play Sanctum, then emerge Herigast onto, let's say, the Enduring Courage. So first make sure this transforms, and then I'm not gonna exile my hand. But I could sack the Sanctum. This is where in paper I would probably get an Artisan of Kozilek, which can immediately get Herigast back, but don't have access to it on Arena. So then maybe we go big with Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. Herigast gains haste. A little short of emerging Emrakul here, but I should be able to emerge at least the Sire onto the Surveyor. So I keep Herigast in play. This also gains haste, so can immediately attack and gain us a bunch of life back. It is tempting to emerge Emrakul onto Herigast. Control my opponent's next turn. Because I could potentially die if they find an answer to the Sire. Although that does kind of mean giving up on emerging Emrakul next turn. So I guess in hindsight, emerging this before attacking would have made more sense, because then we could have gotten in with a hasty Emrakul. Although it's also good to keep it on defense so we can soak up an attack, like send the Hallowed Priest into our 13-13. So this was maybe still the preferred sequencing. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Eshki, Temur, Creature Beatdown. And what do we think of our hands? Good potential, especially if we can find something for Ugin's Labyrinth to imprint. For now I can hold it in hand, maybe scry to try and find something. But the sooner we can make 2 mana with it, the better. And yeah, Ugin counts, even though it's a good card to cast. Still seems worth it to give us a mana boost initially. Can play the Obelisk. I guess the upside of playing Transformer is that I could have cast Spawn Gang with double red, which I currently cannot. So let's get some red mana in play. And then I could always decide to put Ugin back in hand if I really wanted to. Yeah, I think I should have played Transformer last turn and then Spawn Gang this turn, setting up Herigast to emerge. Opponent's gonna set up a Trailblazer for next turn. Yeah, I guess I can put Ugin back in hand. And this turn can fix my colors with Transformer to scry. And then next turn, cast Ugin, exiling something in the process. And then we're in a position where I can maybe emerge using Spawn Gang. Hope to draw into more expensive Eldrazi. Opponent goes for Eshki, maybe into the Trailblazer, then this can make 4 mana. So they could do quite a bit of damage. Could technically use Spawn Gang to deal 2 damage to the Trailblazer. Hulking Raptors next. I think we let that slide, because I would have to sack 2 spawn tokens to make that happen. So yeah, with the Raptor they can make even more mana next turn. So ideally draw something we can cast with Ugin to help clean up. Kozilek's Return can deal 2, only answers the Trailblazer at the moment. Although if I cast it out of the graveyard, I guess we can deal 5 damage. Although it's still a colorless spell, so it still triggers Ugin. So yeah, we'll start here, see what's up. I'll leave, I guess, red mana ideally. This way I wouldn't be able to cast my Kozilek's Return if I wanted to. Could of course also sack another spawn. Exile something that doesn't get taken out by the Kozilek's Return. I guess everything if we cast something expensive enough. But Fanatic is the scariest one to me, making 4 mana. Can make mana to emerge Herigast. Could also sack itself here, deal 2 to Eshki, then make mana. So then Kozilek's Return can clean up everything except the Raptor, because I cannot pay the ward.
Knowledge is a virtue.
It's still a reasonable turn, I guess. So now Lotus Cobra. Do we have a fetch lane to go with it? They've drawn a few cards, so they might have drawn into more lanes. Now if we cast Herigast, we do get to wipe the board. So that's maybe what they're considering as well. Ugin takes 5.
You waste your strength.
Alright, they do have a fetch lane second main. So could see more fireworks. We would be 1 short of casting Herigast if they remove Ugin. Now I could even cast Ulamog. Alright, that's probably game over. Get back Kozilek's Return. Exile your lanes. Possible they have a counter for Ulamog, but the triggers will still happen. Maybe they can flash something in after the sweeper happens. Alright, opponent's just floating mana, maybe for a collected company. Still gonna Kozilek's Return to get rid of their dinosaur. And it was a Surak Dragonclaw, makes sense. But our opponent's reduced down to 2 lanes. Needs to get past Ulamog to get to Ugin. And next turn I can cast Herigast to refresh my hand once again. Exiling Surak in the process. Yeah, Ugin's not really a fair card. Alright, they can bounce Ulamog, so I guess mission accomplished. They can get rid of Ugin this way. And currently I'm unable to recast anything. So that was kind of the best case scenario.
The wise know when to retreat.
So just play the mirror and pass. And then next turn we can try again. I guess now I could emerge Herigast, since that discounts by 1 essentially. I think I'll wait. See if we can cast Ulamog first. Just taking 6 per turn. Alright, and our opponent has seen enough with Ulamog coming down a second time. Alright, sweet. So we got to see this red Eldrazi variant in action, and yeah, we got to emerge most of our Eldrazi Titans. So mission accomplished, even getting the Aeon's Torn to annihilate our opponent. So yeah, pretty fun alternate build of the Eldrazi deck. Not sure if it's actually better than a pure colorless build, but if you're maybe bored of just going all colorless, you can try out this red build instead. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.